Let's start with Ensha's signature weapon, the clinging bone. Somewhat unusually, the item description ends with a quote, "O clinging creature, a king relinquishes not the hand." And there is exactly one character who calls someone, "O creature."
O lightless creature, embrace thine oblivion, as shall I.
With this clue, I started to notice all kinds of connections between Ensha and Messmer. Take this famous line from Messmer.
Of the grace of God shall all be dead, in the embrace of Messmer's flame.
That line is definitely a reference to the Tarnished who had their grace taken away by Marika, as well as the targets for Messmer's crusade. But I think Messmer is also referencing a time when he defeated Ensha. Ensha's flesh was literally stripped from his bones to make his armor, which now glisten with gold. And I always thought that set looked charred or burnt. This is also backed up by an often overlooked aspect of Messmer's lore. Let's look at the Death Mask helm, which was the helm of Wago, elder among the Fire Knights. Gnawed at by loneliness, the old man turned his attention to the spirituality of Messmer's flame, using it in a rite of resurrection. Yet the soulless bodies he brought to life were no comfort to poor Wago. In other words, Messmer's flame has the power of resurrection, but it can only resurrect the body, not the soul. And as we learn from the Royal Remains set, it is said that the bones belong to an ancient lord, the soulless king, the lord of the lost and desperate, who was known as Ensha. What's more, when you encounter Wago, he reanimates soulless bodies that are little more than charred skeletons. Messmer's flame also acts as a contrast to Melina, since his younger sister now lives burned and bodiless. She lost her body, but not her soul. Putting everything together, I believe that Ensha was defeated by Messmer, but in dying to the flame, his remains were revived without a soul. Now, this might be brought up in the comments, but I think the fire Messmer personally uses is different from the flames that burn inside the walking furnace golems. In the English translation for the hefty furnace pot, the furnace's flame burns away both body and soul. When impurity is thus expunged, one calls it cleansing. But as last protagonist pointed out, the Japanese could instead be translated as the flame burns people down to their souls, which is quite the difference. Regardless of which translation you use, their effects are both different from the spirituality of Messmer's flame that brought soulless bodies back to life, as described in the Death Mask helm. This would also better distinguish the flames of Messmer and the furnace golem from the frenzied flame, since the latter can melt away spirits. According to the surging frenzied flame, spirits are eternal, and yet frenzied flame melts them away regardless. No wonder the horn scent forbids the flame's use. This is also why Torrent is scared to ride in the abyssal woods. Finally, we know the blessed bone shards are bone fragments touched by the gold of the shadow tree, broken from the remains of the warriors who perished in the realm of shadow. A blessing such as this is said to be the greatest honor that can be granted to the dead, and Ensha's armor is graced with gold human bones. So I think Ensha was killed in the land of shadow, but after the shadow tree was born. This does raise the question of motive. Why did Messmer defeat Ensha? Now this is a bit more speculative, but I believe that the OG Ensha was a lord of the Sun Realm who had to be eliminated. Now, the sun does exist in Elden Ring, but it's quite small. In fact, it's so small, quite a few players assume it doesn't even exist. As for the Sun Realm, it's one of the more obscure pieces of Elden Ring lore, since it's mentioned in just one item description, the Sun Realm Shield. This is a shield of honor depicting a city crowned by the sun. It has seen better days. Much like the wear upon the shield, the seat of the sun is long faded away. The Sun Realm Shield is carried by many of those who live in death, and you can find them throughout the lands between, in the Land of Shadow, and on Beastman variants in Farum Azula. What's more, many of the Skelly Boys wear capes emblazoned with a sun, further connecting their allegiance to the Sun Realm. I believe that both Farum Azula and Inner Elam were part of the Sun Realm. For me, the biggest piece of evidence is that in both locations the sun never sets, even when the in-game clock is supposed to be night. Now, let's return to Ensha and his royal remains set. From a mechanical standpoint, this set is fascinating. Every armor piece has a gradual healing effect, albeit at low health. This is somewhat akin to the Sun Warmth Stone and the Warming Stone. Both of those items can heal the Tarnished, and connect their healing powers to the Erd Tree and the Sun. The Sun Warmth Stones are a Spirit Gravestone blessed with an Erd Tree incantation. Uses FP to generate Sun Warmth, continuously restoring the HP of those nearby. Sunlight feels all the warmer in darkened lands. And to craft one of these stones, you need both a Blessed Bone Shard and a Black Firefly, a butterfly that has been scoured by Messmer's flames. I'll also point out that you pick up the only Sun Warmth Stone in Inner Elam. In addition, according to the Warming Stone, it's said that the Erd Tree was once as warm as the gentle sun, and would gradually heal all who bathed in its rays. Then there's also the Deathbed Companion Dress, which heals nearby allies, and is clearly linked with death. Meanwhile, the low health threshold for the Royal Remains set reminded me of the red and blue Branch Sword Talismans, which boost either attack or defense when near death, and both of those items are associated with the Deathbirds. The heart sings when one draws close to death, and a glorious end awaits those who cling so tenaciously to life. In the 1.0 version, the Deathrite birds even had a golden particle effect, which further connects death with gold. And like the Branch Sword Talismans, the Twin Bird Kite Shield also boosts attack and defense at low health. The Twin Bird is said to be the envoy of an outer god and mother of the Deathbirds. Both Inner Elam and Farum Azula are connected to death, and the Deathbirds specifically. Farum Azula is and was a giant mausoleum, with countless beastmen entombed in gold. All throughout Farum Azula, you can find iconography of what looks like a twin bird. Meanwhile, Inner Elam is patrolled by grave birds, ancient golems created to guard the spirit graves, built where all manners of death ultimately drift. And according to legend, grave birds were crafted to be kindred to the Deathbirds. And from an aerial view of the Land of Shadow, the Cerulean Coast and Koro's hidden grave do bear a striking resemblance to the twin bird. As for the name Koro or Choro, it's most likely a reference to Charon, the ferryman of the dead in Greek mythology. And in Koro, you can find a Tibia Mariner, the Tibia's Cookbook, and a Deathrite bird. It's also fascinating that both Ensha and Godwyn seem to be connected to the Eclipse. At Castle Sol, we come across an NPC ghost who says the following: "O great sun, frigid son of Sol, surrender yourself to the Eclipse, grant life to the soulless bones." And from another NPC ghost at the castle, we learn that Mikola was trying to revive a soulless comrade of his, who was most likely Godwyn. The OG Ensha and Godwyn are lords of the dead who lost their souls, and the two even share similar titles. Ensha was the lord of the lost and the desperate. Meanwhile, according to Fia, Godwyn will become
the lord of the many and the meek.
Quick tangent, there seems to be two different types of Skelly Boys, specifically those lost in death and those who live in death. According to the Tibia Cookbook, the Mariners are the oldest of gravekeepers, and the Call of Tibia is an ancient ceremonial tool that uses a gravekeeper's skull as a catalyst and can summon one lost in death. Meanwhile, those who live in death emerged after coming into contact with Death Root, which only happened after the Night of the Black Knives, much later in the timeline. There also seems to be different particle effects between those who live in death and those lost in death. I think the tarnished Ensha we meet in the Roundtable Hold was trying to revive the soulless King Ensha that he now wears. Ensha does invade you after you get one half of the medallion to access Mikola's Halig tree, and he attacks you ahead of schedule, as Gideon tells us.
Oh, my apologies for that nasty business. Ensha got rather ahead of himself, it seems. As his master, I'd like to express my regret. But now, Ensha is slain and gone. Finished. Forevermore.
In addition, another fascinating connection between Ensha and the Sun Realm may come from his name. Ensha may be derived from the god Enshag in Sumerian mythology. Enshag was the lord of Dilmun, a divine god in paradise that lacked sickness or death. Dilmun, also known as Telmun, was a land known as the place where the sun rises, that place most bright. In the Sumerian and Akkadian accounts of the Great Flood, Ziusudra and Utnapishtim, the counterparts to Noah, were granted everlasting life in Dilmun, in the Garden of the Sun. But Dilmun was not just a land of myth. It's widely accepted that the Dilmun civilization existed in what is now modern-day Bahrain. Since the Dilmun of myth was a land of immortality, in real life, people may have ventured to Dilmun to be buried there, in the hopes of getting a better chance at eternal life. This may explain the Dilmun burial mounds, which were recently named a UNESCO World Heritage Site that contain thousands of burial mounds. Historically, Dilmun was a commercial trading hub and a source of copper. You may have heard of the oldest consumer complaint, an almost 4,000-year-old cuneiform tablet that attacks Nasir for his really shitty copper. Well, Nasir traded with the copper merchants of Dilmun. As the complaint tells us, is there anyone among the merchants who trade with Dilmun who has treated me in this way? That doesn't really have anything to do with this theory, I just thought it was fun to share. Thank you so much for watching. I'd love to know what yins think.